Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining me from around the world. Thanks so much for taking the time once again on the LinkedIn live stream. My name is John Little. I am the founder and owner of the Winner's Edge Coaching. Today, three things that will help you as a leader help to engage and retain your top talent. So, there's three main areas that I want to talk about. And really, the first one starts with leadership. The better that you are as a leader of getting and keeping your teams connected to you through a relationship standpoint, that's going to keep them engaged. That's going to make them want to stay. It's a pretty commonly known fact that people don't leave organizations, they leave their direct manager. It's not really the most important thing, the company that they work for. It's not really the most important thing, believe it or not, who's going to pay them the most. It's not always the most important thing, their title or their role in the organization, even. What makes the biggest difference oftentimes for someone is, do I have a relationship, a trusting relationship, an engaging relationship with my direct manager, with the person who I work most closely and frequently with, the person who I get my guidance from, the person who I look to help me answer questions, the person who I look to help me figure out things that I may be struggling with, the person who's going to help me grow and develop as an individual. So the more that they have consistent, connected leadership, that's going to help someone remain more engaged, and that's going to make them more likely to want to stay with an organization. Those are the things, honestly, that when you talk to people who have left companies, they most frequently will say, either I didn't see a future for myself at that organization. I didn't really feel connected to the organization. A lot of times, though, and more often than not, you will hear horror stories about the people who they most closely worked for. I was doing a panel last year with Ashley Hurd. She's one of the co-hosts of the HR Besties podcast. And she said on the panel that we were on something that resonated with me. And I was like, wow, that makes so much sense. That your direct supervisor, your direct manager has so much of a presence in your life. It's often the person that you most frequently will talk about at the dinner table, the person that you most frequently will have conversations with your friends about, the person who you kind of sets the tone positively or negatively for how you view your entire work experience. Your connection with your teams, your connection with the people who work most closely with you, the people who you are most closely connected to, those people are going to have such an impact on your reputation, on your legacy, depending on the relationship that you have with them. So when you want to think about, okay, I have top talent on my team or in my organization, I have really strong people who work for me, work with me, or work on the teams, my organization, depending on where you sit in the organization. The question that I really want you to be asking yourself is, how am I connected with them? How consistently do they see me? How consistently am I reaffirming that connection, that relationship? And don't mistake relationship for friendship. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. It doesn't mean, when I say relationship, doesn't mean that you have to be someone's best friend, doesn't mean that they have to be your best friend. It does mean, however, that you have to have a connection beyond just the transactional nature of your work. When you're only focused on the transactional nature of your work, there's a whole other side that gets left out. And even if you view work as, this is a place that I go to get paid, and this is the way that I make my money, this is the way I pay my mortgage, this is the way that I plan for my future, this is the way I provide for my family. If you only look at it through that transactional tactical lens, realize that other people don't have that same exact view. Other people have those needs, those relationship needs, to be able to lean into someone, be vulnerable with someone, look to someone for guidance, for support. Those are the things that really tie an individual to a leader or to an organization. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is the concept of inclusion, right? So I recognize I have a long history and a background in DEI work. I've done the work for years. I firmly believe that diversity, equity, and inclusion are the foundational backbones of strong organizations. I know that DEI has kind of taken a beating over the past couple of years. What I'm encouraged by, however, is that's really a lot of talk and shifting, but most organizations still have some level of commitment to that work. What I'm talking about with inclusion is the inclusion of creating that sense of belonging for individuals, creating the space for them to be who they are, and they can bring what they can contribute to the workforce, and they can feel comfortable from a standpoint of being vulnerable, from a standpoint of feeling as though they're valued. They're feeling as though that what they have to bring to the organization is something that can be recognized and appreciated. Like, that's the type of inclusion that I'm talking about. And I believe this inclusion plus engagement equals results. And it's really kind of a flow of the more included I feel, the more that I feel like I belong, the more that I feel that I'm respected, the more that I feel that my perspectives are valued and appreciated, the more engaged that I'm going to be with the organization, with my team, whatever the case may be. But wherever I feel as though I'm more engaged, wherever I feel as though I have that stronger connection, wherever I feel that I have the more of an opportunity to contribute, then I'm going to be more engaged. Now, think about it from the standpoint of your team as a whole. If you have most people or all people, I don't really like, speaking in absolutes, but let's say that you have most people within your team, most people within your department, most people within your organization who feel as though that they individually can be their best selves at work on a consistent basis, and be their best selves, meaning that they feel comfortable to innovate. They feel comfortable to speak up in meetings. They feel comfortable to respectfully push back on things that they may see differently, may have a different perspective on, and they feel as though that perspective will at least be accepted into the conversation. Doesn't mean that you have to buy into it or agree with everything, but when you have those core kind of those core foundations within an organization that focuses on creating that environment where people feel as though they can innovate, where they can contribute, where they can respectfully push back, where they can have healthy, productive conflict as part of a conversation, then that allows people to feel included. And when I feel included, then I'm going to be more engaged. There's going to be more ways for me to connect with the work that I'm doing. There's going to be more of an emotional investment, and more of an emotional investment in me wanting the company, the organization, the department, my team to do well. It's just going to mean more to me. And when I'm more willing to be engaged, that means that I'm going to give a little bit more discretionary effort. I'm going to give a little bit more of my ideas. I'm going to invest a little bit more of my time, my personality, what I can contribute, than if I was disengaged. So I was disengaged, I'm just doing enough to keep my paycheck. But if I'm engaged, I'm giving that next level more, that notch up more. And when you have a team that is doing that, when you have multiple people within an organization who have that feeling of being included and valued, and they're more engaged, then what happens is your results start to skyrocket, because inclusion plus engagement equals results. That's the best way to get results. Don't focus on the end product. Focus on creating that culture of inclusion. Focus on creating those spaces where people can contribute. Focus on creating ways for your people to be engaged. Focus on ways for your teams to get engaged. Find ways to get them to a point where they are really thinking about, how can I give my best to this project? How can I give my best to this team? How can I give my best to this organization? How can I make sure that I'm not leaving anything on the table, that I'm going all out and I'm pouring everything in? And when I do that, then I'm getting the results that we want. And you'll see that your results will likely even exceed your greatest goals and expectations. So I talked about consistent and connected leadership. I talked about inclusion plus engagement equals results. The last thing that I want to talk about, the third thing, as it relates to engaging and retaining your top talent, is recognition and feedback. These are so critical for leaders to be focused on. Recognition and feedback is something that needs to be consistently and constantly focused on and delivered. So when I talk about recognition and feedback, I'm really talking about those conversations where you are able to give your perspectives. You're able to share with someone else, really, here's my perspective. Here's what I'm seeing. Here's what I'm experiencing. And I want you to hear it. I was having a conversation earlier today with someone about the whole process around feedback. Feedback should start from a place of gratitude, whether you're giving it or receiving it. And here's why I say that. If someone cares enough to take time out of their day, to take time out of whatever else that they need to do, and they have enough investment either in you, in your team, in your results, in your organization, to spend the time to give you feedback, be grateful for that. Even if it's positive or negative, doesn't matter. The fact that someone is taking the time to give you feedback is something to be grateful for, because they don't have to do it. And if they're giving you feedback, that's an indication, a clear indication that they care enough about you, the team, the project, the organization, to share their perspectives with you. So from a mindset standpoint, accept feedback from a lens of gratitude initially. All right. When you're delivering feedback, it's the same exact thing. When you deliver feedback, it's important for you to frame it up oftentimes to say, hey, I care about you, the project, the team, etc. And I have some perspectives, I have some feedback that I would like to share with you. That framing up of that conversation can make a huge difference in how feedback is received. But if you just kind of come right out with it out of left field, then you don't know how it's going to land with someone. Similarly, if someone just were to drop some feedback on you positively or negatively, just out of left field, you may not really know what to do with it in that moment. And your relationship with feedback also may be different. This is a bit of a generational lens, something that I've taught for years about recognition and feedback, and how the different generations that exist in the workplace have a relationship to feedback that is unique to their perspective. So, for example, those who are in the boomer or the Gen X generations, and I've got a little extra wisdom down here, so that gives you a hint as to where I may fall into that. Feedback wasn't something that was consistently given. Feedback was something that was received either on a scheduled basis, meaning when we were in school, we would get our report card every quarter, and that would tell us how we were doing. Or when we started working in the corporate world, we did an annual review. So either on our work anniversary or at the end of the year, we got a sense of how we were doing. That's how feedback was delivered. That's how it was expected. For millennials and Gen Z, it's completely different. It's completely different because feedback has been a constant part of their existence. In school, they consistently received feedback through being able to access their grades online, being able to see things in real time as they were happening and get that immediate as to either what they were doing right, what they were doing wrong, what they needed to double down on, or what they needed to correct. And then let's talk about social media and the instant feedback for anything that's shared positively and negatively. It's a social condition that feedback happens in the moment. And in business and in corporate settings and our organizations, that expectation still exists for our millennial and Gen Z workforce. Now, our boomer and our Gen X workforce, like that feels so foreign to us. A lot of times, if we don't have that insight, then our mind can go to, so why do you constantly need feedback? It's exhausting to always be telling you. But from the millennial Gen Z mindset, the question is, if I'm not hearing anything, that must mean that you don't care, or it must mean I'm doing everything wrong. And that is an express train to disengagement. That's a way that I've seen organizations lose really super talented people very quickly, because there is not that connection through recognition and feedback. So that's just something to be very mindful of. The frequency and the consistency of you delivering feedback, going to it through a lens of gratitude, and then recognizing individuals' need for feedback as you are navigating through that and leading them. That's going to make a big impact on you. And then recognition. So, I was part of a LinkedIn forum earlier this week and last week as well. That was really fascinating about how recognition is being done differently and how different employees are connecting to recognition these days than really pandemic. There was somebody who shared an example that they had a team building event, after hours work event, that was scheduled for 100 people, and less than half of that, I think it was about 35 people, actually showed up. And so the question in the forum was like, why do you think that is? Like, do people no longer care about after work activities? And of course, people shared their opinions, their perspectives, their experience. And what I shared was, when I hear something like that, it tells me a few things are at play. One, leadership isn't connected to the team, because they don't know A, what's important to them, B, they don't know what's valuable, and C, they don't know if the timing was right. So if someone just scheduled something Wednesday at 6 o'clock because that's what they've always done, or because that's what's worked for them, but they didn't actually survey the people who they expected to be there, they didn't ask them, well, what type of things do you want to do? Where do you want to do it? And when do you want to do it? That ends up being a big waste of time and money, because if I'm not connected, if I don't have any emotional connection to the team, and it's something that's inconvenient, I'm definitely not doing it. Now, it may be inconvenient, but if I'm connected to the work that I'm doing and the team that I'm doing it with, and I enjoy spending time with those people, there's potential that I would try to make a little concession. I would try to be there. I would try to make it work. But the leadership has to be connected to the team in order for those to happen. So you can't just go to recognition and say, well, we're going to do something nice, or we're going to do something fun, or we're going to give people these perks, just because we think that that's what's worked in the past. It's 2024. Those things don't work anymore. You really have to ask. You have to figure out, how do you want to be recognized? What works for you, and individually, and then collectively as a team. The other thing is the layers of recognition that need to be in play. And again, LinkedIn forums always give me some really great things to think about and talk about. But there was something that I saw last week that said that people don't want pizza parties anymore. People don't want company swag. They don't want T-shirts. They don't want the Yeti cups. They don't want those type of things anymore. What they want is emotionally intelligent leaders. They want companies that demonstrate empathy. They want organizations that recognize that even though we're a collective organization, I still have individual needs. I was like, yeah, I like both. Like, give me the swag. Like, I'm good with swag. I like those things, because that gives me a different level of connection to the organization, that allows me to represent how proud I am to work for an organization, or not, if I don't want the swag. But it's not an either or often. It is really like, what's important for you as an individual? Like, do you want the pizza party? Do you want the swag? Do you want the tangible things? Or do you really focus on the intangible work experience? And that's where you want that recognition to be drawn from. Is it a combination of both? If you aren't asking, you won't know. So I really want to encourage you as leaders, as organizational leaders, to spend the time connecting with, spend the time in learning about, invest the time with your teams before you spend the money to do things on recognition that really may not land the way that you want them to. Being able to do those things, being able to engage and retain your top talent, that's just going to make your organization stronger. As a coach, one of the things that I like to do is work with leaders to help them really build those strong ties with their teams. And I do that through that embrace framework that I talk about: empathy, mindset, brand, resilience, authority, capabilities, and effectiveness. That is the foundation of the leadership work that I do. Been having some great experiences with the clients that I'm working with. Would love to work with you as well. Go ahead and send me a message or give me schedule an appointment with me. I would really look forward to talking to you, learning more about what you're looking to do and how I can contribute to your success. Have a great rest of the day, a great rest of the week, and I will talk with you next time.